My name is Daniel Cole, and this is the story I've never told anyone. I call it, My Boss's Wife Asked for Shelter, then said, Don't tell him. It was late autumn in Boston, the kind of night when the wind cuts like glass and the city feels lonelier than usual. I had just returned to my small apartment above the laundromat, exhausted from another 12-hour shift at the architectural firm where I worked as a junior designer. The place was dimly lit, my sketches scattered on the table, the smell of burnt coffee lingering from a pot I'd forgotten hours earlier. I was 24 then, still chasing dreams that barely paid rent, still measuring my worth by how many nights I stayed later than anyone else at the office. That night, I wasn't expecting company. Yet, around midnight, I heard a knock on my door. Sharp, hesitant, but urgent. At first, I thought it was just some drunk neighbor mistaking apartments, but when I opened the door, my entire world shifted. There she was, Claire, my boss's wife. She looked nothing like the polished woman I'd seen at firm events or in glossy magazines. Her blonde hair, usually flawless, was tangled and damp from the rain. Her coat was too thin for the cold, her eyes red as if she'd been crying. She clutched her purse like it was a lifeline, and her lips trembled when she whispered, Daniel, please, don't ask questions. I need a place to stay tonight. My first instinct was disbelief. Claire Whitmore, the wife of Robert Whitmore, the man who owned half the city's skyline, the man I worked under every single day, standing at my door like some runaway, felt impossible, like I'd stepped into someone else's story. I stammered, Claire? Are you okay? She shook her head. No, and I can't go home. Please, Daniel. Just don't tell him. Those words, don't tell him, landed heavy. They carried secrets, danger, maybe even betrayal. And yet, looking at her, shivering, fragile, desperate, I couldn't turn her away. Come in, I said, stepping aside. She moved past me, setting her purse on the table, pacing like she couldn't decide whether to sit or collapse. I handed her a blanket from the couch. She wrapped it around herself, but her hands still shook. For a moment, I just stood there, unsure. She must have seen the questions in my eyes because she finally said, I know how this looks, but I couldn't think of anywhere else to go. You're the only one who wouldn't ask too many questions. Claire, I said carefully, your husband, he's my boss. If he finds out you're here, her gaze cut through me, fierce and pleading. That's why he can't know. Please, I promise, I'll explain. Just not tonight. There was something raw in her voice, something that made me swallow my hesitation. I nodded slowly. All right, you can stay here tonight. Relief washed over her face. She sat down, finally letting her shoulders drop. For a while, neither of us spoke. The rain tapped against the window, and the silence between us grew heavier, filled with everything unspoken. I made us tea, more for something to do than because either of us wanted it. She wrapped her hands around the cup, staring into the steam as if it might give her answers. Daniel, she said after a long pause, you remind me of someone I used to know, someone kind. I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to ask 100 questions. Why are you here? Did he hurt you? Are you running away? But her eyes begged me not to press. Instead, I said softly, you don't have to tell me anything tonight. Just rest. She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes, though tired, carried a strange warmth, as if my words had reached a place untouched by wealth or power. Thank you, she whispered. I gave her my bedroom, insisting I take the couch. She tried to protest, but I didn't let her. Before she disappeared into the room, she paused at the doorway. Daniel. Yeah. She hesitated, her hand gripping the frame. You can't tell Robert. Not now. Not ever. There it was again, don't tell him. I nodded, though unease twisted in my stomach. I won't. She studied me, as if searching for cracks in my promise. Then she gave a faint smile, one that carried both gratitude and sorrow, and closed the door. I didn't sleep that night. Lying on the couch, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the faint sound of her movements in the next room. Questions tore through me. Why me? Why my apartment of all places? What was she hiding from her husband? Robert Whitmore was powerful, commanding, and intimidating as hell. At the firm, his word was law. To me, he was both a mentor and a shadow, someone I admired, feared, and desperately wanted approval from. If he ever found out his wife had come to me, of all people, it would ruin me. And yet, beneath all that fear, something else stirred. A dangerous thought I tried to push away. I liked that she was here, that she trusted me, not him, that, in her moment of weakness, she'd chosen me. That night marked the beginning of everything. The choices, the lies, the emotions I couldn't control. Looking back, I realized it wasn't just a knock on my door. It was fate, dressed in rain and desperation, asking me to open my life to a storm I wasn't ready for. The next morning, the world felt different. The rain had stopped, sunlight creeping weakly through my blinds. I woke to the smell of coffee. Claire was in the kitchen, wearing one of my old hoodies, her hair tied messily, her eyes softer than the night before. She looked normal, human, not the untouchable wife of a tycoon, but a woman who belonged in a small apartment, barefoot on a cold floor. "Morning," she said quietly, almost shyly. "Morning." She slid a mug toward me. For a second, it felt absurdly domestic, like we were two people sharing a life. But then the reality crashed back. She wasn't mine. She was his. I finally asked, "Claire, why me?" Her smile faltered. She stared into her cup. "Because I needed someone who wouldn't use it against me. Someone decent." "Use what against you?" Her eyes flicked up to mine, filled with a weight I couldn't yet name. "My secret." Before I could respond, her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, then quickly silenced it, turning the screen face down. I caught a glimpse of the name flashing before it disappeared. Robert. Her hand trembled slightly. Then she met my eyes again. "Please, Daniel, remember what I said. Don't tell him." And in that moment, I knew I was caught in something much bigger than myself. Something dangerous, intoxicating, and impossible to walk away from. The days that followed blurred into something I couldn't name. Claire stayed in my apartment longer than that one night, and each morning I expected her to say, "I should go back." But she didn't. She carved out a quiet presence in my life, folding herself into corners of my space, as if she'd always belonged there. And yet, every minute she remained, the weight on my chest grew heavier. I went to the office each day, facing Robert Whitmore, the man who unknowingly trusted me to design his skyscrapers, while his wife brewed coffee in my kitchen, answering none of the questions that burned inside me. One afternoon at the firm, Robert clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Cole," he said, his voice booming across the drafting floor. "Your concept for the Charles River project, bold, risky. I like it." I managed to smile, though my throat was dry. Robert's approval was the kind of validation people spent years chasing. And here I was, nodding, grateful, while knowing that his wife was hiding in my apartment like some secret no blueprint could contain. "Thank you, sir," I said. He grinned, but his eyes were sharp. "Keep working hard. I see potential in you. Just don't let me down." The words burrowed into me like a blade. Don't let me down. I thought of Claire, sitting barefoot in my hoodie, whispering don't tell him. Both of them, husband and wife, binding me with invisible chains. When I got home that night, Claire was curled on the couch, flipping through one of my old sketchbooks. She looked up, guilty. "Sorry," she said. "I shouldn't pry." "It's fine," I murmured, tossing my bag down. But my chest tightened at how natural she looked in my world. "Your work is beautiful," she said softly. "There's so much of you in it." "Robert, he never sees that, does he?" I froze. The way she said his name, so casual, so dismissive, like she'd already cut herself free from him. "Claire," I asked carefully, "why can't you go home?" Her expression shifted, fragile, like glass about to shatter. "Because home isn't safe." The silence that followed was unbearable. I wanted to press her, demand the truth, but her eyes glistened with something that silenced me. Fear. Days turned into a rhythm. I worked long hours at the firm, hiding the exhaustion, while Claire filled my apartment with quiet life, cooking small meals, leaving notes like, "Don't skip dinner." At night, we sat together in the dim glow of the lamp, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about growing up in Maine, the ocean air, the way she used to paint before her marriage consumed her identity. I told her about my parents' divorce, how I'd come to Boston with nothing but a suitcase and a sketch pad. We laughed more than I expected, but beneath it all, a current of tension ran strong, an unspoken pull neither of us acknowledged. One night, after too many glasses of wine, Claire leaned back against the couch and said, almost to herself, "Do you know what it feels like to be invisible, Daniel? To live in a gilded cage while the world thinks you're lucky." I swallowed hard. "Yeah, I think I do." Our eyes locked. For a moment, the air thickened, charged with something we both recognized but didn't dare name. She reached for her glass, and her hand brushed mine. The touch lingered too long, sparking something dangerous. She pulled away first, her voice barely a whisper. "We can't." But the way she looked at me said otherwise. The tension spilled into my days. At the firm, I found myself distracted, staring at models of glass towers while imagining Claire's laughter filling my apartment. Robert noticed. "You seem tired, Cole," he said one morning, narrowing his eyes. "You keeping yourself busy after hours?" I forced a laugh. "Just projects, sir. Late nights." He studied me for a beat too long, then let it drop. But my pulse hammered in my throat. He suspects nothing. He can't. The unraveling began a week later. I came home late to find Claire on the balcony, phone pressed to her ear, her voice sharp and urgent. "No, I told you I can't. Not yet. Stop calling me." She hung up quickly when she saw me, her face pale. "Who was that?" I asked. "No one," she said too quickly. "Claire." She cut me off. "Daniel, please. Not tonight." The wall between us had cracked. I could feel it. The secret she carried was no longer just hers. It had seeped into my life, my conscience, my every breath. The breaking point came on a Friday night. I returned home to find Claire gone. Panic surged through me until I spotted a note on the table. "I'll be back. Don't wait up." Hours passed. Midnight, then 2 a.m. I paced the apartment, torn between calling Robert, calling the police, or doing nothing at all. Finally, at 3, I heard the knock. She stood at the door, disheveled, her eyes swollen from crying. Without a word, she stepped inside and collapsed against me. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, trembling. "I can't live like this." I held her, my heart pounding. "Claire, what's happening? You have to tell me." She pulled back, looking at me with a mixture of fear and longing. "If I tell you, everything changes. You won't look at me the same." "Try me," I said. Her lip quivered. "Robert isn't who you think he is. And if he finds out I've been here, it won't just ruin you, Daniel. It could destroy both of us." The room seemed to tilt. My boss, the man I owed my career to, suddenly loomed like a stranger, a threat. Claire grabbed my hand. "Promise me you won't leave me alone in this. Please." Her eyes burned into mine, and in that moment, something inside me snapped. Logic, morality, fear, all drowned beneath the intensity of her presence. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, and when I kissed her, it wasn't just desire. It was desperation, defiance, and the terrifying certainty that we had crossed a line we could never return from. That night, the world outside disappeared. We were no longer boss's wife and employee, but two people clinging to each other in the eye of a storm. And yet, even as her body curled against mine, a voice whispered in the back of my mind, "This is the beginning of the end." Morning light has a cruel way of exposing things. The night before had been fire and whispers, desperation and stolen breaths. But as dawn crept through the blinds, reality settled heavy on my chest. Claire lay beside me, her hair tangled across the pillow, her eyes closed as if the world couldn't touch her here. For a brief, dangerous second, I imagined this was our life, that she belonged in my bed, in my space, in the small, imperfect world I'd built. But the truth cut through like glass. She wasn't mine. She was his. And sooner or later, the truth would surface. When she woke, her smile was faint but genuine. The kind of smile that dared me to believe in something impossible. But then her face hardened, as though she remembered where she truly belonged. "Daniel," she said softly, "what happened last night? It can't happen again." I swallowed. "I know, but I didn't believe it." Neither did she. The following week was a blur of stolen glances and suffocating guilt. At the firm, Robert's voice boomed across the conference room while I avoided his eyes, terrified he'd somehow know. Every good work, Cole, felt like a blade twisting deeper. One night, after everyone had left, Robert poured himself a scotch in his glass office and called me in. "Sit down," he said. I did, trying to steady my breathing. "You're ambitious, Daniel. That's good. But ambition can distract a man." He swirled the glass, eyes sharp. "You're not distracted, are you?" The words nearly gutted me. I forced a steady smile. "No, sir. I'm focused." He smirked, but there was no warmth in it. "Good. Because in this business, loyalty is everything. Betrayal, I don't tolerate betrayal." My throat went dry. When he dismissed me, I left shaking, haunted by the suspicion in his eyes. That night, I confronted Claire. "What aren't you telling me?" "Robert, he suspects something. He practically warned me." Her face paled. She gripped her glass of wine like it was her anchor. "I didn't want to drag you into this, but it's too late now. Tell me," I demanded. Her eyes filled with tears. "Robert isn't just controlling, he's dangerous. He's not the man the city thinks he is. He hides money, manipulates deals, keeps people under his thumb. And when I threatened to expose him," she broke off, trembling. My chest tightened. "He hurt you?" Claire nodded faintly. "Not always physically, but enough. Enough to make me run. The night I came here, Daniel, I left because I found proof. Documents. Things that could ruin him. He doesn't know I have them. Not yet." The room spun. My boss wasn't just a tyrant, he was a criminal. And I, by sheltering Claire, had just become part of his war. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk. Claire stayed hidden, though every day the risk grew sharper. We lived in a fragile bubble, fragile enough that even laughter felt dangerous. Our closeness deepened. Long nights, soft touches, kisses that felt like both salvation and betrayal. But shadows don't stay buried. One evening, as we ate dinner, there was another knock on my door. Heavy, deliberate. I froze. Claire's face drained of color. "It's him." My heart thundered. I opened the door a crack, and there stood Robert Whitmore. "Cole," he said smoothly, though his eyes glinted with suspicion. "You didn't answer your phone." I stammered. "Sorry, sir. I must have left it charging." His gaze flicked past me into the apartment. My chest constricted. Was Claire visible? Had she left something out of place? Robert's lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You've been working hard. Keep it that way. And remember, loyalty." He left, his footsteps echoing down the hall, but my body stayed rigid, drenched in sweat. When I turned, Claire was pressed against the wall, shaking. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered. "He'll find out. And when he does," the end came sooner than I expected. One Friday, Claire was gone when I got home. No note, no call. Her things, her purse, her sweater, still lay scattered around my apartment, but she was gone. I searched the streets, called her phone until it went dead. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Robert had found her, dragged her back, silenced her. 2 days passed before I received an envelope under my door. No return address. Inside was a single note in Claire's handwriting. "Daniel, I can't let you burn for me. If I stay, Robert will destroy you. I love you, but loving you means leaving you. Don't look for me. Please, forget me." Tears blurred the words. My chest ached with an emptiness I couldn't fill. Weeks bled into months. Robert carried on at the firm, all power and pride, while I buried myself in work, my eyes hollow, my soul fractured. No one mentioned Claire. She had vanished from society as though she never existed. Sometimes, late at night, I'd catch myself listening for her knock, imagining her laughter spilling across my apartment again. But the silence stayed unbroken. One evening, months later, I found myself standing at the Charles River, watching the lights ripple across the water, and I realized something painful but true. Claire hadn't just sought shelter from Robert. She had sought shelter from herself, from a life built on lies. And for a fleeting moment, she had found it with me. But some storms aren't meant to pass. Some storms swallow everything, leaving only lessons behind. Now, years later, I still think about her. Not with regret, not anymore, but with the kind of ache you carry quietly, like a scar hidden beneath a shirt. I learned something from Claire, something no degree or career could have taught me. Love is not always salvation. Sometimes it's temptation, sometimes it's sacrifice, and sometimes it's a reminder of the lines we cannot cross without losing ourselves. I don't know where Claire is now. Maybe she's free. Maybe she's still trapped. Maybe she's nothing more than a ghost in the city's endless story. But I know this. The night she knocked on my door, I opened it. And in doing so, I discovered the most dangerous truth of all. Sometimes the heart doesn't care about consequences. And sometimes, silence is the only way to survive.